So head of the Oath Keepers, Elmer Stewart Rhodes, who's on trial for seditious conspiracy, among other charges for, trying to violently overthrow the government, took the witness stand in his own defense today. And boy, did the jurors get an earful. Let's talk about that, because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So I was in court today when lead defendant and head of the Oath Keepers, Elmer Stewart Rhodes, took the witness stand and began testifying in his own defense. His testimony will continue on Monday. You may recall that Rhodes and 4 of his fellow Oath Keepers are on trial for essentially trying to violently overthrow the government. Or violently interfere in the execution of the laws of the United States. In other words, trying to stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win. Rhodes and his co-defendant are charged with the following crimes: seditious conspiracy, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstructing an official proceeding, conspiracy to prevent an officer from discharging duties, destruction of government property, civil disorder, assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers, and tampering with documents or proceedings. Now, Rhodes, as I say, has only been on the stand about an hour and a half, and then the court broke for the day. His testimony will resume on Monday. But even what he said today in that hour and a half inspired all sorts of headlines, including this from the Washington Post: Stewart Rhodes testifies in his own defense at seditious conspiracy trial. NBC News: a jovial Stewart Rhodes tries to woo jurors at Oath Keepers' seditious conspiracy trial. And this from CNN: Oath Keepers leader testifies 2020 election was unconstitutional, paints himself as anti-violence. Now, friends, I was in the courtroom. Let me give you my perspective on how Rhodes' testimony is playing out. And let me not bury the lead. It ain't going so good for old Elmer. But I'm going to give him this. He opened strong. Here is how his testimony began. Question from his lawyer: please state your name. Answer: Elmer Stewart Rhodes III. I go by Stewart, my middle name, for obvious reasons. Okay, 1 point for old Elmer. It was a cute answer, even a little self-deprecating, but that was the only point Rhodes earned during his testimony today, because very quickly, Elmer Stewart Rhodes began to show the jury exactly who he is. He's a braggart, he's arrogant, he's self-important, bordering on grandiose. He's a know-it-all. In short, he's a real I alone can fix it kind of guy. Why do I say these things? Here's why. Rhodes told the jury that he started the Oath Keepers because law enforcement officers in the United States were not sufficiently trained. He then went on to give the jury a tutorial on how to police a protest, how law enforcement should behave at protests. Even though Elmer never served one day as a police officer or a law enforcement agent of any kind. He said that when the Oath Keepers would go to protests to supplement law enforcement efforts, they would, quote, show up the police. He even said that they would embarrass police departments, inferentially with how well the Oath Keepers policed. He said that his presence and the Oath Keepers' presence at protests would send a signal to law enforcement that they better do their job. And Elmer told the jury that when the Oath Keepers went to a protest, the police would perform better. In short, Elmer exposed himself to the jury as an insufferable blowhard with an unwarranted superiority complex. But frankly, all of that distasteful, off-putting, alienating testimony from Elmer Stewart Rhodes didn't prepare me for what was to come next. Rhodes' attorney asked him, "Sir, do you believe the election was stolen?" Rhodes responded, "I believe the election was invalid. It was unconstitutional." And then he added, and that's even before you get to the, quote, fraud and all that other stuff. So Rhodes then told the jury, "I am a constitutional expert," and he said that his conclusion, his determination that the election was unconstitutional was due to pandemic-related changes that some of the states made to voting procedures. So Elmer has designated himself the arbiter of what is and what is not a constitutional election, which does kind of explain, though not in any common sense way, why Elmer Rhodes would say, if Donald Trump doesn't invoke the Insurrection Act as part of the need to stop Joe Biden's certification, the certification of Biden's election win, then the Oath Keepers will take matters into their own hands. So that sure seems like a whole lot of foreshadowing of what we can expect when Elmer resumes his testimony next week. It looks like he's going to claim that because he is the arbiter of whether an election is constitutional or not, he and the Oath Keepers decided they had to stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win. They're the ones who get to make that decision. Well, you know what, friends? I'm looking forward to his continued testimony on direct examination, that is, while he's being questioned by his own lawyer, a friendly force. But I'm really looking forward to him being cross-examined by my former colleagues at the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. Because justice matters. Friends, as always, please stay safe, please stay tuned, and I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.